Don't know, Bill was out of action health-wise for 6 weeks, and we're glad to have him back. Ladies and gentlemen, he's been here over 25, he's in his 27th year. Bill Franquez, give him a hand, please. Hey, this is a wonderful thing. Before we get to Paul, let me give you a chance to meet some people. We have lots of players here. Former players. Now, naturally, none are from Paul's era, of course. Paul's players are in class or getting ready for practice where they're supposed to be. On the other hand, here is Mike Papajohn. You remember him from 1986? Yeah, 3 Spider-Man movies and probably 100 others. He lasts about 5 seconds before he's murdered in the movies. I do want to introduce, Art Swanson, one of our best. He's a former player, but before me, of course, pitched for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he was in the big leagues for a while. And he's got his own battles, and he's here every time. Ladies and gentlemen, how about a hand for Art Swanson? Sitting next to Art is a guy that coached with me and coached some of the guys here, like Bennett and some others. He's an agent. You know, he's a player representative, and he's here to watch some of the outstanding people, both at LSU or in high school or junior college. He's a national championship coach, helped us in many ways. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Schwanke. At that table, coach from Southern University, 40-year total, Roger Cater. And at that table, one of the national championship players, Brian Bennett. And bringing the whole table and getting them all together is a former coach also, who's now with the Tiger Athletic Foundation, Dan Canterbury. Rusty Jenkins is also here, former player of mine. Anybody else that I missed, Dan? And thank you so much for being here for Paul. Naturally, there's nothing to, last year I remember there was tension. You know, like, Paul wasn't winning enough games, you know, things were worried. But he's only a half a game out of first place. There was a tie. People say, how does the tie happen, Skip? And it happens like this. You have an airplane to catch, and it's you need time to shower and get to the airport. So you say, no new inning after 4 o'clock. You start the game about noon, and you figure, gosh, in 4 hours we can get it. Then the game goes 12 innings, and you have to go. It's 4 o'clock. Now, I was at Texas, and I had one of those. At 4 o'clock it was. And the late Augie Garrido, great coach, great friend, wonderful guy. And his team's batting in the bottom of the 8th. Okay, but the clock is like 3:45. So if he can just last, 15 minutes. Well, the first guy makes out. So all of a sudden there's a timeout. And he comes out of the dugout and he talks to the kid, and the umpires say, let's go, coach, move it. He's killing time. That kid does reach base, but then another timeout, we got to talk some more. And he did that, yes, until finally it was 4 o'clock, and he goes, woo! Well, now the game's over. All right, and of course, I go shake his hand, and I said, good game, Augie. And the reporter said, Augie, you really stalled in that last inning. You could have hustled and given them another chance. And Augie's response was, I know. It helps to have no pride. But forward-thinking athletic directors have allowed the coaches to have chartered planes and that gets Paul off the hook. He can stay as long as he needs to. While we're here, let me mention a few things. One is, we're talking about a sport that's different than the king of sports, football, here at LSU and throughout the Southeastern Conference, and basketball, but it's different than soccer and it's different than ice hockey, even if we had that. There is no clock. No, the ground can't cause a fumble, or we don't have to replay that. No free substitution. Yeah, it's the only sport in which they call them runs. All the other sports, they're points or goals. You don't have to be 6'7" and bench press 400 pounds like the football players that you see, or have unusual vertical jump or the ability to bench press 125 pounds 15 or 20 times in a minute. You don't need excessive speed like you do in football. You don't need that height that you sometimes need in basketball. All you have to do is be a good teammate and play hard. You got to be smart. 80 million people watched Big League Baseball last year. Although it was a down year, the weather really, for the first 3 weeks of the season, was really different, and the free agent market showed that. Players that we know in here, like Alex Bregman, signed a $100 million contract for him to lock him in for the time. And of course, by the time that contract's over, he can redo another one. And Aaron Nola did the same thing in Philadelphia after winning before he won the opener. He signed for over $40 million for just 4 years. And of course, he'll only be 29, so he can redo another free agent contract at that time, as opposed to Mike Trout, who signed from Los Angeles Angels a 13-year contract for $430 million. So don't worry too much about baseball. It's going to be there, and they can pay. Every franchise is worth a lot more than when the owner bought it. It's been around a long time. In 1876, on June 24th in the Montana Territory, George Custer, in the Battle of the Little Bighorn, got beat in less than an hour. 600 soldiers, including himself, were killed. But in the East, the Cincinnati Red Stockings beat the New York Knickerbockers 2-1. That was the beginning of the National League. You know, like any business, Paul has to work real hard to get all the players to play together. He has to take those who don't play and make them into good team members. And those who play a lot and hit way up high, like Zach Watson leading the team or others, to make sure that they don't get too full of themselves and to reach down and help all the younger players. Just as, say, Billy Guitro would do at Turner Industries with the group that he runs, or anybody else out there. But it's very difficult because there's so much failure involved in this team. Not just this team, but all teams. Paul gives them all a chance. His philosophy is, let's play them and find out, and you got to admire that. When you're up in an airplane at 30,000 feet, take a look down and see that brown or sometimes red clay and the outline of a baseball field at a high school somewhere, and remember that it's well over 150 years old, and that some guy in 1845 laid out a baseball diamond where the bases were 90 feet apart. Fastest guy in the world can't beat out a ground ball that's hit right at the shortstop. But if the shortstop misplays it by just a little bit, the guy will be safe. If you're at first base, it's a bang-bang play and a single to right. If you're at second, base hit in center field, it's a bang-bang play. Watch a triple, and we've had triples in a symmetrical ballpark like ours, in which the ball and the runner arrive at the same time. I think it's a lot different than the other sports. It's got a lot of things that Paul would like to do that he can't. One of the things is, in baseball, you have to give him the 27 outs. No matter what happens, unless the time schedule that I mentioned happens, or rain, you have to give him the 27 outs. All right, you can't do like the king of sports, football. You can't run it into the line 3 times and kill the clock. You can't take a knee. Okay, you gotta let them have their time. And it's great. So last week on the radio, Coach Canterbury and I had the bring the wood guy, or bring the aluminum guy, and Reed, who's a great kid, you know, from senior, was 6 for 8 at Mississippi State. Paul's had a lot of good experiences at state or at here. He's never lost to Mississippi State in a series except one time in 13 years.